if you're not prepared to, take some risks or see eye to eye, it's going to fall over. You've all got, like you said before, you've all got your skills that you're good at, what Jacinta's great at, what you're great at. Yes, we have our moments where we butt heads, but I think you all have your heart in the right place and want to see succeed. The hardest thing is to let go and let go and let your kids do it, because it's been hard work. It's been hard. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional now. I didn't mean to. When people say, how does a family business run? It is hard work.
Welcome back, guys, to the CX show here. We have a special guest on the podcast, my lovely mum, Marie.
Hi, everyone.
And I'm joined by two co-hosts, Dad.
Giddy up.
And Alex.
Hey. Most people suck at family business. You've got so many stories of like families falling apart or like all this like nasty shit happening with people. You guys have got it together. I think a lot of viewers would be asking, like, how the hell does this thing work?
Yeah. It just works. I mean, at times it's hard, and you definitely have we definitely have our moments, right? I get asked a lot, what's it like working with your old man? What's it like working with your mum, with your brother, with your sister, etc. Because the person who I'm speaking to, they may be from a family business as well, and like just yesterday, I went to my first FBA event, which is Family Business Australia, right? And the son there, he was saying he had a good relationship with his dad, but because they were so competitive, they would always try and beat one another, and then that would cause some issues here and there, right?
You think?
But but I mean, like for me, I know exactly where I sit. I sit here, Dad sits here, and in general, all of us, we sort of know where we sit. I think that's why we were.
I mean, it's up in the
Alex
air.
is confused where he sits.
What do you mean?
It's up in the air.
Here. Well, it's actually basically about like oldest to youngest, but
You want to go there?
But
you want to go there because of the oldest?
Jacinta would be wrapped because she's above you then.
Yeah. But we all know where we sit. I think that's why we actually work well. And
The hardest thing to manage in a family is trying to get each individual family member to work at their strength, right? Because you might be good at
everything, yeah.
I think
one particular thing, right?
Pointing at me.
And really bad at something else. But you like doing the thing that you're bad at. So, it's trying to convince you to go and do this, and at the same time making it your idea.
But it's not just. But Dad, it's not just actually like family, family to do that. There's a quote that Tesla, what's his name again? I should know.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, right? I was watching an interview he did, and it says, his key role, right, as an owner is, he wants to work on the things that he wants to work on, but he can't. He needs to work on the thing that the business needs him to work on, right? Yep. Which is exactly sort of what you just said.
That's exactly.
Yeah, but I'm saying, well, it's just not in family, but.
So Elon stole my idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
My thought process.
Made there. But yeah, like I said, we our dynamic works because we all sort of know where each other sits, and we all have that respect for each other.
Most times.
But it's and
I mean, I always tell people, like I told a guy yesterday, with you will say, hey, okay, if you want to do it this way, you can do it this way, but I recommend you don't do it because this. But if you want to do it, go ahead, and you let me do it, and you let me make a mistake, and then I learn from etc. Where Mum will say, no, you're not doing it. You do it my way. There's the sort of a difference.
I can second that.
I'm
You'll still let us make the mistake, and you'll be ready with her. I told you so. At the end, Mum won't give us the opportunity to make the mistake.
No, because
why is that, Mum?
And it's not that, because been there and done that, I sort of feel like, well, I want to help you and give you more information, like don't go that way, because the hardest thing is to let go of something you've taken care of a certain way and let someone new come in and do.
I'm not new, I'm your blood.
No, but
you have
taking
my best
over.
intentions.
Like, it was only me and Dad there for a while. Then you were 16 when you came on board. Not that I want you to stay at school, but you wanted to do it and you came in and you took everything on board. That's great. But, as it was me and Dad running the operations, everything, we had our set ways. And, yes, we didn't agree a lot of times, but I knew where he was going with it, and I just trusted his way. So I was comfortable with that. You come along and you want to go in it, and honestly, to me, this whole new ball game was, today, I'm not up to date with everything. So I do get nervous, and I don't know what it involves. But, I've learned to step back like you and let the kids, do a bit more. That's a learning thing for me. But, yeah, if I feel like, no, don't go that way, because I'll say it. But I know I should give you the chance, and I'm learning to do that.
And the worst thing is when I say, don't do this because this is going to happen, but you still do it. And it does happen. And you say to me, yeah, but I've got to make my own mistakes. You don't have to make your own mistake, even though you will learn. You will learn. It's a harder lesson, when you do, fall over, but you pick yourself up and you keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
And Jack,
Rocky Balboa.
Sometimes in the back of my mind, I do hear our parents, and I remember your dad telling you something. I think, let him do it. But now, get emotional.
We're 4 minutes in, Mum. Don't cry. 4 minutes.
No, I know, because it's a very.
Are you going to
hard...
say she's getting soft, like you say to me?
You are getting soft.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
There's
you're getting soft and you're getting very cranky.
Get emotional. No, because the hardest thing is to let go and let go and let your kids do it, because it's been hard work. It's been hard. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional now. I didn't mean to. But it's been hard work, and when people say how does a family business run?
Yeah,
it is hard work, and you have to be prepared to let go of a lot of things, which you kids have been privileged. We've given you, but we sacrificed a lot, and I'm very happy to do that for my family. But that's why I'm hesitant when I let go of things, because it took a long time to get there,
You do see a lot of businesses when they do transition from the senior to the next generation, within a few years, they topple over, right?
Why
because the newer generation always thinks they know better than their parents or their predecessors, yeah? And I was no different. Dad, when Dad had his fruit shop, Dad, there were certain things he wouldn't let me do, right? He wouldn't let me touch bananas or pears, right? The banana stack, he had to put them a certain way, right? And I'd say, let me do it, Dad. I know how to do it. I've been watching you for so long. No, because, if you touch it the wrong way, you're going to leave a thumbprint on it or something. No. So don't touch it. So he'd be halfway through a stack, and then he'd go out the back, he'd go to the toilet. So what would I do? I'd jump up and keep going and keep adding to what he was doing really quickly. So when he came back, I'm there because I finished the stack. And there is an art to building up a banana stack. Not the way they do it now. They just plonk it down like, looks crap. Anyway, so, and he'd come back and you'd layer it, so you put the green ones on the bottom, and as you go up, it goes from green to the ripe ones. So when people come in, they take the ones off the top, and as it goes down, they ripen.
When you take the ones from the bottom first, it's easier access.
No, the ones on the bottom are green.
That's the foundation.
No. The stack is about this high, right? Okay. So it's the height thing. So I'm thinking he'll come back, see I've done it really well, and next time he'll let me do it on my own. But no, he comes in, sees it, and then all of a sudden I'm dodging potatoes and things, and he's throwing things at me because I shouldn't have touched it. And he goes, if I see just one thing, that's bruised, it's your fault, But I always thought that I could do it, and to me I could. I still think, but we didn't always see eye to eye, but he wouldn't give me any leeway at all. Yeah. It was just, no, my way, draw the line, done. Well, I know how I felt when he did that to me, so I try to give you a bit of rope, a bit of latitude. But sometimes I think I should not have given you that much rope, because now you've gone through it, you've seen what's happened, and I said this is the way it's going to work out, and it has worked out that way. And now you say, yep, now I've learned. But why do you have to go through that pain when I've gone through that pain?
Yeah.
People say, the kids.
Well, it's one thing for you to tell me.
They need to learn they need to make their own mistakes. Yes, to a certain degree, but there's nothing wrong with learning through other people's mistakes.
I get that, but then there's other side is what I said, look over here. This is my reason for doing it, and you wouldn't know it because it's a new.
Yeah. Okay. And look, I'll try. We'll try. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you don't try new things, and then you'll probably never grow. A lot of people get comfortable in their own little lane and their own little thing, and all of a sudden, their businesses start to go down because they don't want to. They're happy where they are. They don't want to grow. They don't want to invest more money in your business, and that's one thing that we always do. We keep on reinvesting into our business.
Why do you think people don't want to reinvest in their business? Is it they're happy with what they got? Are they content or?
Okay, so if you're going down the path of succession planning and generations, generally like people like Mum and I, we like to have a buffer, right? Don't spend everything you make. You reinvest in your business because you do need money for a rainy day or for another opportunity, right? Because if something comes up where you need to spend, quite a bit of money, then it's there. You've got it put aside.
How long did you need to wait to buy a house?
We bought a house straight away. What are you talking about? It just wasn't the house that you wanted.
That's right. I've got to buy another truck. I've got to buy another truck. I've got to buy another truck.
So,
but Mum, are you complaining now?
How long, huh?
Yeah, you complaining now?
No, I said, well, that's what I'm saying. I just, whatever Dad decided, that's...
And here's the difference between our generation, what I see, our generation and your generation. Here's the difference, right? We were, I was raised in Malvern, had a shop in South Caulfield, so the area was very affluent, and when I met Marie, she came from Vermont South, and I just thought, well, no, we're going to get a house near us, in Malvern, South Caulfield, somewhere there, and then, you have a look at the house prices, right? They wanted $800,000 back then for a place in Malvern, right?
It's cheap.
Back then, that was...
And then I thought, Marie, what about where you... Where
I was happy. I was close to my family.
Where your family are. And so we had a look in Knox. So we ended up... I said to one of the agents, how much for this house in Knox? And I remember he said it was $117,000. And I thought I misunderstood him because I'm used to the $800,000 price tag, and he says it was 117. I think he wanted about 120, and anyway I said, yep, no worries, we'll take it. All right. So I said to Marie, we just bought this house, and she just burst out crying, all right, because if you had a look at it, that they had dogs in there, and the carpets were filthy, and they stunk and everything. And I said, don't look at it now, just wait till I finished. So, we pulled out the carpets. We
had to gut it out.
We gutted it out. They had a separate. They had one little toilet, one little this. So we opened it all up. We put a spa bath in there with a bidet. We had everything. Back then it was really good.
Yeah, but there was a time that we were in that situation.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, let's say we spent $50,000. We basically got a house the way we wanted at the end for 160 versus something for 800,000.
That wasn't really yours.
No. Did I live in the area that I wanted to live in? No, because I was happy growing there. But we moved further out, right, to somewhere where we could afford. Now, and I say your generation. Generally, your generation doesn't want to do that.
Yes, they do.
They want to live where they want to live.
there's some people that
they don't want to move out, even though it's cheaper.
Because they want, but it's their location. If they want to be in that location, I want to be in that location.
But the Pakenham of 20 years ago is like the Murray Morwell of today.
And we all know, I mean, we don't have to name names, but we know other family businesses, right? As you've said before, like when you started Cold Xpress, you started with your uncle, right? So today it's still family business, right? But that didn't work out, right? And there's lots of other businesses that start with family, doesn't work out. What do you think is the main factor on why it doesn't work out? Because obviously we've worked out, right? Or still working out. But, why do you think other family businesses don't work out?
I'll say what I saw was starting off with, family like that. I think you need to be on the same page, and you need to respect each other, what you take care of. I found with, when we first started, you're very much a risk taker because you see the goal further down. Some people don't want to take those risks. Some people know how many times, did we put up our house. I remember you once asked someone, what's the difference between me and you?
Yeah.
And he said to him, would you put up your house? He goes, oh, no, I'll never risk my house. He goes, well, that's why you never get ahead.
What was that? I think you said that.
You said it in the last podcast.
So if you're not prepared to, take some risks or see eye to eye, it's going to fall over. I think with us, I see like most of you's all working for us. You've all got, like you said before, you've all got your skills that you're good at, what Jacinta's great at, what you're great at. What I like. Yes, we have our moments where we butt heads, but I think you all have your heart in the right place and want to see succeed. So can't be any jealousy between brothers and sisters in family. You're all working for the same goal. And some people think I'm more important than you or he's more important than me. You've got to be on the same page and want the same goal.
I agree with everyone want to be on the same page. Jack can't read yet. But,
what are you talking about?
Well, Mum,
but actually, just on
going on the strengths. No, going on the strengths. What do you think? What do you think Jack's
You don't
strengths
want to know the answer to yours. You don't want to know the answer to yours.
But what are Jack's strengths?
No.
I actually see a lot of Jack, a little bit, Dad, willing to take risks.
Okay.
Calculated risk. Okay, all right.
I don't think I'm a very big
new.
risk taker. I'm a calculated risk taker.
Yeah, but to other
You said
people,
calculated risk,
people, you're a risk taker. You in your head have calculated, but to other people, that's
I
a big
back
risk.
myself because I know what I can and can't do.
Yeah, but I see, Jack. Like I said to you before, I like how you've pushed yourself out there and taken us to a new level. Something that I don't think
whatever
we'll ever
I do
be.
is for all of us, not just. It's not for me.
I know, but you're out there always
You're
researching.
so
That's why I say he's like you.
But it's true. But it's true.
you're
we're going to be here for a long time. So whatever we are doing, or I'm doing, whatever it is, it's all together. But just touched on, and I'm going to say it. At the end of the day, though, someone has to be in charge.
Yes.
So when you guys fully step back, I know you say no one's more important than the other, but at the end of the day, how it all works is because we know Dad's in charge. So it doesn't matter whatever goes on, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's right. We
all listen to him. That's it. And that is a very important structure. So whoever, whenever one of our siblings take over, right, we all know this person's in charge. We don't overstep.
He's waiting for you to say yes, Jack.
I'm not saying nothing. I'm not saying nothing.
No, I'm not. But I'm just saying, that's how they work. I think that's how it has to work.
No, you're right.
There's got to be a pecking order.
I agree. Yeah, but sometimes power goes to people's heads when they get a bit of power, right? It goes to their head, and all of a sudden, I'm the boss. You do what I say. That's when things start to fall apart.
But we've never been like that, Dad. You haven't.
That's because they're still here.
I'm not like that, right? So
even you yourself, you're not like
your days are numbered, bro.
So
you're right,
the higher you go, and I always like to have analogies between like karate and work, because I did karate for over 40 years. Yeah, we had our own dojo, and the higher you get up, the higher in rank you get up in karate, right? The more humble you need to become, right? And I see the same in business, right? The bigger you become, a lot of people think, now I'm big, and they forget about the small person. No, to me, it's a complete opposite. The bigger you get, you need to never forget those little people who got you there. Always be humble, always have humility, right? To me, that's probably one of the biggest things. If you take nothing else out of today, be humble. Be humble.
I reckon I'm humble. Do you think I'm humble?
Do you know anyone else who thinks you're humble?
My wife, yeah.
It's a big.
No, but we are. I
thing.
mean, I think we are.
It's a big thing. I hope we are.
Yeah.
It's like, growing up, you kids were like, mum was always screaming at you, do this, do that, do this, do that. And if you ever go to someone else's place, she'd say, make sure you do it, make sure you're on your best behaviour. And then the feedback we'd get back is, oh my God, your kids, they're so polite, they're so good. I'm thinking, they're talking about our kids? Really? Why don't they act like that at home? So some things do rub off.
I'm assuming you're talking about the other 3 kids you got, not me. I'm a child of, I'm a saint at home. Mum, back me up on that one.
You are someone.
I'll give you that, Alex. You always have us in fits of laughter. I'll give you that.
I remember.
That's not where I was going, all right? It's not a compliment. Take what you can get.
Okay, a family business, right? Like, why don't some work? Why didn't they work? Why didn't you know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay, so when you got 2 people, right, that have the equal share, equal power, that's when things start to butt heads.
That's exactly what I was saying before. It has to be.
That's why they sort of like were forced to sell, because they 2 brothers could not get along anymore in business.
Yeah. They're different visions of how the business, which direction they wanted the business to go.
Oh, look, I think.
Yeah, okay,
yeah. One person, was a little bit more relaxed. The other one is always, always on, never shut off, and it was just too much at the end. So they ended up moving on, selling their business.
And why didn't you work with your uncle?
Because I was growing up, he was always the one that was put up on a pedestal. He went to school, he got the bit of paper, did this, did that. Had a really good government job. And when he came over, and then I said, I remember going to my auntie one day, and she was pregnant, and I was vacuuming her house for her because she's pregnant. And I said, oh, by the way, I'm thinking of going into another venture, with refrigerated vehicles. And she said, oh, you should speak to your uncle, her husband. And I said, yeah, why is that? She goes, oh, because I've been telling him for years to go out on his own, because they'd seen, because he was someone who played it safe, yeah? And, they'd seen people that were on the same level as him go out in the private sector, and all of a sudden they're making more money, and, and she felt that they're being left behind. So he said, if you've got something, maybe talk to him. So I said, look, this is what I'm going to do. And he goes, oh yeah, I'd go in that with you, and you do the logistics and I'll do the admin side. So I thought nothing of it. I thought, yeah, okay, well that's going to be a good fit. When we moved in, the problem was, I didn't like, he was really high up in the ATO, taxation department, ATO, and to get there, I thought you've got to know every aspect of admin, right? But the problem was that if he needed something done, he'd pick up the phone and get someone else to do it, right? So he didn't actually do it himself, right? And when you're starting a small business, you have to be able to do everything yourself because you can't afford to employ someone else, all right? And I was looking after the operational side of things. I'd say to him, you need to get these trucks, or we need to do this. And it was like, there was always a brick wall. No, you can't do this, you can't do that. It was always no. And also, when we started growing, and we needed to invest in the business, it was always up to Mum and I to invest, and he didn't want to invest. Now, if we're 50-50, both have to be 50-50, right? And it wasn't. We were the ones funding it, which, okay, it's my uncle, no problem. You let it slide.
But how? You let slide. It's in business. You shouldn't. What else was he bringing to the table then? If he's not putting money in?
Well, I thought, he takes care of the admin. I'm not like that. Like, I'm putting this, you must put in that. We're not like that. When it comes to family, because he said, if it doesn't work, you're young enough to start again. We won't be able to start again. So I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. We'll just do it, right? Because like I said, I'm a calculated risk taker. I backed myself. I thought, yep, it's going to work anyway. But then throughout the course, for the first 2 years, we didn't take a wage, right? There was no money coming in at all. And I said to him, we were living off the equity in our house that we bought in Knox, right? Didn't have a lot of equity in there.
And that's what a lot of family business would be doing right at the start, right? You've backed yourself, you're living off equity in your house.
Yep, because we know for the first 6 months, a year maybe, there's not even enough money to draw a wage, right? So
that was tough with both of you in there.
Yeah. I was full time. There was 3 kids back then. Alex wasn't. I don't think Alex was born, was he?
So nothing to blame on me yet.
Not yet. And after 2 years, we just about used up all the equity in our house. And I remember saying to him throughout the course, I said, "How are you living? How do you pay your bills?" And he said, we live very frugally. I'm drawing down on my super as a hardship case. We're living off credit cards." And I'm thinking, but you've got to pay the credit cards back. But, I just let it go. I'm thinking, it doesn't make sense, but, we just got to keep persevering. Then I remember 2 years have gone by. We've taken out not $1 out of the business, right?
How many years?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Whoa.
Not 1 cent did we ever take as a wage. Nothing.
Good savings then.
And Marie was working 3 days a week, and I was full time. My uncle was full time. His wife was full time, right? And I remember Mum coming out of the office and she was, wasn't happy. And I said, "What's wrong?" She goes, "Your uncle." I said, "What?" She goes,
So, Mum, you say it because I heard Dad say it, but I've actually never heard you say this.
Oh, I went in and asked him. I said, "Can I have some money just to buy some groceries?" He goes, "No, haven't got any money. I couldn't believe it. I walked out.
Hang on.
You didn't ask him any questions.
Did you ask him, "How do you expect me to feed my kids?"
Well, he said that to you.
What?
Said that to you.
No, he said it to you.
When he said the
yeah.
Oh,
you can swear here. It's all right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, Mum said
he didn't give a.
So you asked him and he said,
"Mum, I've heard you swear at me. You can swear on this."
He didn't care. He didn't care.
He didn't care how we were going to feed our kids.
No, didn't care.
And
This is what I mean when you don't see eye to eye when you work together. He was never really eye to eye with you moving forward. You would move forward and he would bring you back.
He always thought that he was superior.
Yep, because he was older than you.
Yep, because of his age.
And his little nephew couldn't tell him what to do. Couldn't possibly know more than him. And that's what it was. But he's I suppose we didn't talk too much about the family, but that's how it was.
Anyway, then Marie came out like in that state, and meanwhile he had hired another bookkeeper to do our books. All right?
No, I said to him, if I'll have to go and get another job, I have to go and get something. I need some money to pay for groceries. And he says, "Well, if you have to, you have to." And I said, "Well, who's going to do my work? Because I am here. I am working 3 days a week." He goes, "Oh, we'll have to find someone else to get in." And that's where I cracked and I said to you, he's willing to pay someone else, but not us.
Yeah. So anyway, this guy, Rob, says to me, "John," he goes, "you do know that they take a wage, that, his wife takes a wage." I said, "What? No. No one's getting him money." And he says, "Yeah, she takes a wage. She takes $677 a week. Clear." I said, No. He goes, "John," he goes, "have a look at the checkbook." I said, "I don't even know where the checkbook is."
No, he didn't.
Because he was the admin section, right? So Rob said it's in the desk over there. So I went and had a look. I flicked through it. Sure enough, $677 every week they were taking. Now I know how they were living. And all we asked for was $200 a week to do some grocery shopping.
Yeah.
All right? That's all we asked for. And when I saw that, I flicked through and I saw there was a $10,000 payment, something else. And then...
you saw red.
I was going to say
you saw red.
Steam would have been coming out of you.
I said to him, tell me something. Do we get paid for what we do here? He goes, no. I said, so me and Marie, we don't get anything. We don't get a wage. He goes, no. I said, and neither, you guys don't take a wage either. He goes, no, I don't take a wage.
Chose his words.
I don't take a wage. I said, right. I said, so Marie doesn't get paid. No. I don't get paid. No. You don't get paid. No. Does your wife get paid? He said, yes. I said, she gets paid. He goes, yeah, how do you expect us to pay our bills? All right. So I said, right. Okay. So she gets paid. So I said, and that's when I said to him, okay, well, we can't keep going on this way. So Marie's going to have to go out and get a job and won't be able to work here. All right. And he said, yep, well, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I said, right. Now, who's going to do Marie's work? And that's when he said, well, we're just going to have to hire someone. I said, so you're going to pay them though, aren't you? He goes, well, of course we have to pay them. I said, right. I said, now there's I noticed in the check butt, this is when everyone did things by checks. I said, there's a $10,000 withdrawal here. What was that for? He said, oh, yeah, I took a punt on some shares. I said, so you spent $10,000 on shares? He goes, yeah. I said, what are those shares worth today? He goes, oh, it didn't quite work. They're probably worth about $4,000. Right. So you had money to spend $10,000 on shares, which could have fed me and Marie for a year. All right. I said, okay. You know what? Tell you what we'll do. Get the business valued and fuck off.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's what I ended up saying to him.
What was the business value?
Well, back then, and I said to him, I want you to pick the valuer because I don't ever want you to say that I had anything to do with it. So he picked the valuer. He did everything. I said, I just want to know who you're going to pick. So he picked the valuer and he told me and I rang them up and I said, just out of curiosity, how do you value businesses like ours? And I told him what was involved. He goes, you've only been going for a couple of years. It's basically net assets, whatever the assets, the company owns, because there's no goodwill in the business. That's what he said. I said, okay. So then, okay, I'm thinking, we bought a van when we started. We both put in, I think it was about $12,000, and the van's had done like 500,000 kilometres by then. And so the van's basically worth nothing. The cool room that we built actually was funded by Marie and myself, so he didn't put anything in. So I'm thinking his share is like nothing. So I thought, perfect, we'll just go on valuation, right? Then our accountant rings me and says, Johnny goes, your uncle's asked me to change all the figures and do this and do that. He goes, this makes no sense. You're going to, it's not a true representation. And I said, look, just do what he wants. I just want him out. Just do what he wants. So he manipulated the figures. And anyway, then the guy came in and the valuation came in at, I don't know, 130,000 or something, right? After all these things. And I said, what? That makes no sense. And, because you made profits over here. I said, no, we didn't. We actually didn't. So whatever he did, and I said, you know what, my half, I said, we'll just pay him off our half. And I said, you need to resign as a shareholder, and he wouldn't resign. So I basically said, you know what, you take the company. You take it, and
We started afresh.
We started a fresh one.
What was that company called?
Oh, we started. It was originally Cold Xpress, but we just started a different version of it. And I said, right, we made sure we paid everyone from that old company. And I remember we were always struggling for funds. And I remember on the day that he left, he drained our bank account, completely drained it of all the money, and said, "Oh, that's my super." Now, where's my super? Where anyway, it was a dog act to do. Marie and I, we've always been in business. Marie was a hairdresser before, so what are you laughing at?
I just every time when someone says, "Oh, I was this before," I think of the Billy Happy Gilmore song. It's like I was a janitor. Remember Happy Gilmore? The start of Happy Gilmore, when he goes, "Oh, I was a plumber," and he goes through all the jobs he's had. Come on, you've seen it.
Yeah, I just
Jack,
probably blocked that out of my memory.
Yeah, the Happy Gilmore scene. It's like, "Oh, I was a janitor once." He grabs them.
Anyway,
sorry.
As we had our shops and all that, we had a decent car and everything, and they, I think, they were always a little bit jealous of everything that we had, because when we had our shop, we built, 17.5 squares above our shop, and it was all, the latest. We had automatic, blinds. We had tiles.
I think he was jealous a bit about.
You worked 9 days a week.
Yeah. We worked a lot. Yeah, but, people don't see that, Jack. People don't see that. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit here, just for something different. People say it's really hard to buy a house nowadays, because of the economy and everything. But, it's always been hard. It's always been hard, but I still think if you're prepared to do the work, you can still get your house and do it now, I heard the other day the Labor Party's pushing to do a 4-day week now. I mean, how seriously, and the wage has to be the same. I can't think of anything worse for businesses.
What do you mean 4-day week?
Instead of working 5 days, you're going to work 4 days a week.
That'd be your weekly.
But you still get the same money.
Where do I sign?
Yeah.
Where are we signing?
Yeah. So who do you think's going to pay for that?
We are.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take our business, for example, right? So all of a sudden, we have to come up with like an extra 20%. An extra 20% for our wages. So what are we going to do? We're going to put our prices up. Because it's the only thing. Because you can't afford to pay another 20%. Because if someone's doing 5 days work now, who's going to do, and they go down to 4, who's going to do that 5th day? Who's going to work that 5th day? Someone, and you've got to pay them.
You have to hire someone else.
And you're going to have to pay them. So your costs have just gone up. When our costs go up, what do?
Where's our price?
We lift our prices to the manufacturers and everything. And guess what? All of a sudden,
They lift their prices.
They lift their prices to the supermarkets, and people go in there. Oh, hang on. Last week this was $2, now it's $3. Why is that? Well, because of things like this.
Yeah.
Idiotic policies going to a 4-day week. If you want to get ahead in life, okay, you got a 40-hour week or a 36-hour week, right? And I used to laugh about 36 hours because, being raised in the fruit shop, we were doing like 120 hours of a standard week, all right? So if we could do it back then, and that's why we were able to save money and put money away. It's like, you guys now working 2 full-time jobs, right? So if you worked 2 full-time jobs, do you think you'd be able to save for a house? Of course. Yeah. One wage, you just put it all away. Put one full wage. Imagine, Jack, when you were 18, you bought your first house, all right? Yeah. When you were 18. How did you do that? Because when you were 16, I said to you, you work like a man, I will pay you like a man, all right? And for the first 2 weeks, for the first 2.5 years, right?
On blast, yeah.
For the first 2.5 years, you did not touch your wage. Your wage went straight into your bank, and then you had a deposit for your first house.
Yeah, I was living at home though.
Yeah, you were living
I
at
was living
home.
at home.
That's fine.
As you would in any wog sort
You
of
were
family.
living at home.
But you're 16.
You know, you didn't really go out much, and
I had no friends.
Every now and again, you'd go to the
Nothing's
movies.
changed.
You'd go to the movies, and I remember
All my friends, I pay them.
I'd give.
They're on the
in this
books.
room.
They're on the yeah, they're in
Because
this
I said to Jack, don't touch your wage, and if you need to go somewhere, I'll give you the money. All right? So I remember he said, I want to go to the movies tonight. So I gave him $50, right?
what you thought was $50.
No, I gave him $50, right? And he came back that night and he goes, oh, Dad, I went to the movies, blah, blah. I only spent $20. Here's $30 back. And he actually gave me $30
You
back.
did.
Now, unlike you say, Dad, I'm going to the movies, give me $100.
$6,000.
And then
Come to me.
I'd say to Maria, I gave Alex $100. She goes, what? He came to me and asked me for the money as well. That's right. So you'd go to me and
You're
that's the
arguing.
character
You're
that-
arguing with me. That's the
Hey.
business mindset you've instilled me in. Blame yourselves.
Yeah.
I was saving for a house.
So my point is, if you're willing to work two jobs and have one wage put aside, anyone can still get ahead.
I was willing
It's
to
just
work
what
two
are you
angles.
willing to do? What are you willing to do right now to get that house? Because everyone talks about it. The opportunities are still there now if you're prepared to do the work, and that's for anyone. You know, when I was little,
The house is a lot dearer, by the way, now than back then, by the way.
yeah, but so wages are a lot
you
more.
may-
as
but-
well.
but it
you
hasn't
make more.
gone
In proportion.
yeah, that's right.
Okay,
yeah.
I'll say it again. You know, work two full-time jobs.
Yeah, sometimes it's still not enough.
So what's the average wage now? 60, 70,000 a week? Sorry, a
Whoa.
week. A year?
Should be.
A year?
Something like that.
So
I'm on what, 20 grand a year? I need to up the prices.
if you get let's say you can put aside $50,000 a year, yeah, by working two jobs. You do that for 5 years, all right? You don't think that $250,000 deposit is going to be enough to get you into the property market?
Not where you want to live. Some places.
But it's enough
Look
to
at
get
Sydney.
you in.
I don't know.
But then in those 5 years, you'd have to branch
But
out
those
even
two jobs
more.
aren't sustainable though,
Why?
because you can't always work two jobs like
Why?
that. Well,
Things come up.
What if you want to have a family?
Well, we did it.
You had one
No,
full-time job.
you had one job.
But the hours were the same.
Yeah, but
Oh,
There's lots of things-
Dad's saying,
Jack-
because how many hours in a
I
week?
used to-
600?
I used to get up at 3:30 every morning.
yeah, okay,
right?
but
I'd go to the market.
I understand. But back then, houses weren't the same. Houses were a lot cheaper back then.
Yeah, but
But the wages
Yeah, but
were
the-
lower.
it's the
wages
same.
were
But
less
it hasn't
as
gone
well.
up the same. It hasn't gone up the same.
You know what
Jack's
I think
saying
it
if
is
it went
today?
up level with level,
didn't
then
go up
yeah,
level.
that percent
So
would
if
be
you
the
try
same.
and do that now, you still how can you do it?
Jack, back then, I didn't buy in Malvern. I bought it. You know, you make sacrifices. We bought down in Knox
Yeah.
because the houses were cheaper.
But you know,
But unfortunately, a lot of today's youth, they don't want to make those sacrifices,
and I agree with that. But
and they want to work
but when you
less
say
and less
two
hours
full-time
and get more and more
jobs,
money.
Yeah, I mean, your second full-time job isn't going to pay as well. Like, you know, you got different. Yeah,
I think it's how
understand.
you want to live too. Like, you know, the young people of today want everything today.
Yeah, well, but it's also
They don't
a
know
lot-
how
yeah,
to
'cause- but
budget.
that's in society how everything is.
They don't know how to budget.
is now.
You're looking at
Yeah.
you're not looking at
No,
me.
I'm not looking at anyone.
There must be
Don't know
something
how to
behind it, 'cause you couldn't
budget
be
to
directing that
get.
at me.
And I've had this conversation with you, Alex. You don't need 6 pairs of white shoes.
What the fuck?
You're right. I agree.
Right? You
Because
don't-
it's 7
so-
days in a week.
so-
I need
but
7.
today, you don't.
What do you do with 6 pairs of white shoes?
Come over, I'll show you.
Because they're
All
all
the boat
different and
parties you
they're
go
all
on.
nice. But you don't need them. So if you want to save your money, you buy what you really, really need, not
All I
what
know
you
is
like.
I've got 5 pairs of white shoes because we take the same size.
You know, and I try,
We're not the same
try and
size.
teach you
Well, I wear
to.
You never
runners.
see my drawers?
See,
I'm saying, you know, even the going out for buying lunch, coffees, all that adds up. How many times have we gone out
that
for
thing
coffees?
that Beck put in our family group chat the other night.
But that's
$8.
true. But that's true. It
Yeah,
adds
I
up.
know that's true. Now,
you don't
look,
think about the
now-
$8 right now, but you add that up.
I'll
through the
admit, I love a little sweet treat. Who doesn't?
Mm.
Now, I buy food.
what's her name?
So, I buy I buy food a lot, and yeah, like it does add up. But I don't spend like my sister, for example. She'll buy a $9 coffee. Me, I don't drink coffee. I don't see that.
I mean, she buys $9 coffee.
She'll buy like a lactose-free soy latte, dash of cinnamon, stirred for 3 minutes on an open close. She'll do that. I know about
with
that.
a twist of lemon.
With a twist of lemon, yeah, of course. You know, get the photo right, get it all glammed up, beautiful. That's not me. But yeah, people do that daily.
Okay.
I agree.
So when you look at it, Alex, if you work 2 full-time jobs, and I'm going to go back to this, if you work 2 full-time jobs and watch what you spend, there is no reason why you can't save 75% of what you earn.
You're big on playtime. You're big on play.
How I say it is, you can do that when Alex is age, but for me, I can't do it. How am I supposed to do it? How are you supposed to work 2 full-time jobs and see your family?
Family business, I think that's
but you're just saying. I'm just saying, like you got to.
But what,
that's how you guys used to back then.
How can you ask that question when we went through it?
Because mum was at home. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, in your generation, you always had the one parent was always home. Right, and one person was always generally.
I still think we should go back to that.
Traditionally, you know, the females are at home and the men went to work. Now, because the cost of living, now it costs more to live. Both parents have to be working actively. You know, both parents need full-time jobs to do that. So if someone also, and then if you want to get ahead on top of that, and they got to work extra, then
Yeah, but I'm talking about you as the male.
Yeah.
Right. If you work longer hours, there is always an offset, right? Yes, you might get to see your family a little bit less at the start, but you're building something up for them. Yeah. Now, ideally, you'd like to start when you're a lot younger.
Yeah.
Putting away.
Yeah.
And saving and working hard.
I get it from that aspect.
Because if you work, remember I said to you, you know, the way I see it in life, there's 2 paths that you can take, right? You stay and back then, you know, and even now I've changed my opinion a little bit on this, right? I'd say to you, okay, you can either stay at school, get your piece of paper, go work for someone, get some experience. Then by the time you're 35 to 40, you can then go out on your own and open up your own practice, whatever you decide to go into, right? Now, there is that way of doing things, or put the work in now when you're young, 16. Don't worry about going to school. Work hard, save your money, and invest that money into property or something like that.
Crypto, yeah.
No, not crypto. No. Something that you're going to make money off, right? If you invested in that way, then by the time you're 45, instead of looking to ramp up your career, you can be winding down, because hopefully you've made the right choices with your investments that, you know, you're in a position then to start winding down.
And you haven't done that.
Well, I remember saying to Mum, you know,
when 60 and you still ramp it up. So
hang on, when I was 30, I said,
hey, let him cook.
I said to Mum,
he's telling advice.
I said to Mum,
complete opposite.
I said to Mum, I want to be in a position to retire when I'm 45.
I took it that he said we're going to retire when we're 45.
I just said I wanted to be able to be in the position to. All right. And I think we were, but then we kept on, you know, putting in. And who wants to retire when they're 45?
Were you back last year a little bit?
I think most people
probably 45.
Probably before 45.
No, you say that now, but you know, people have to do something with their lives. But yeah,
I could find plenty of things to do.
So you're the youngest that have come into the business now, right? How do you? Well, you see all 4 of us, you know, how we sort of get along in business. You've been for 2 years. How do you feel it's going? How do you find working in the family business, right?
Me, look, it's different from my eyes versus what you'll look at it. I see you and Dad, like, not work on equal playing fields, but still have the same goals, just different ways of trying to get there. Dad's more of a, I'd say more reserved. Jack's more of let's do this now, less thinking forward. Like you make a lot of decisions.
I fucking think.
You make a lot of decisions without going through like full thought out, and that's good. Like like you're all for
and then
trying
you say, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that.
But I find you guys aren't always on the same page. I find you guys aren't. I find it's more like, oh, Dad, by the way, I did this. And then I see... What? What?
One of these?
Yeah, one of these. The back scratches. Back scratches. Mum, like, John, what did you do? What? Peers over her. Like, Mum, you're always in the computer day and night. Like, I'll get home, I just assume you're in the study. And that's how it's been for, well, since I could always remember. Like, I've lived in a few houses, and every house has always had a study, which was always filled out with Mum on the computer. That's just how I've grown up. I started in the warehouse.
Because we make sacrifices.
Yeah, look, and I'm grateful for the sacrifices, as least I do.
She's just an MSN talking to her friends.
Well, look, as...
You obviously noticed a huge change since I came into the business in 2011, right?
Yeah, anyway. No, honestly, as much as the company does revolve around you, Dad, Mum's like the rock. Mum, I always find... That's how it is. That is how I've always seen it. Mum's
It's a partnership.
Mum's always been the one
that you go to for money. Don't think I don't see that you paid him another. You got him money yesterday.
Yes, I did.
Whoa!
I reimbursed him.
Reimburse me. There's a difference.
To reimburse him.
We getting bonuses
I
around
got a
there?
receipt this time.
Just so you know, I don't miss that shit. Yeah.
I've always noticed that. As much as you want to take on your shoulders, Dad, you're still human, and you still have to delegate, and you still have to, ask for help. As much as you don't ask for help, Mum's always been there to help you. And I think Jack's starting to realise that himself. Jack's trying to do everything himself, to show how good he's been for the company, which this isn't stop recording. I know you've done heaps for the company. I'm not saying you haven't.
Straight facts.
I'm not saying you haven't.
What's he done?
Look where you are.
I'm
Look
not
where you're
saying
sitting
he
at.
hasn't.
Look at this fucking building.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, yeah, you paid for it, right? But
Isn't that the main thing?
but I brought you the deal.
Oh, you brought me the deal.
I basically
your
broke you the
attention.
deal.
Oh, okay.
I basically broke you the deal.
There we go. I had it all back with
You weren't even in the fucking country, Dad. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah, I was here on the ground getting the fucking legwork done.
And I paid for it.
Yeah, but someone's on the ground.
That's a crucial part of this whole thing.
But yeah, I think everyone plays their own different role. Even Jacinta coming on board now, she's
good. She's undervalued.
I'm not saying
underestimated.
I'm
undervalued.
not saying. I just
She
think
works way too much.
she's the one that works.
She's
12
undervalued.
o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Full-time jobs.
Yeah.
12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. She's still ringing me. Dad, what about... Blah, blah, blah. I said, Sinner, seriously. Why are you still at work?
You know what?
Go.
She's working 2 jobs.
She's working 2 full-time jobs. Which is
shouldn't
what you
be.
asked
She
her to
should be
do.
working at Cold Xpress at normal hours so we can communicate at a normal fucking hour instead of at 3 a.m. I was texting her.
I told her to work at 3 a.m., did I?
Yeah, but I'm saying, but this is the thing.
She was listening to the podcast.
Before you're talking
she heard
about
your work 2 full-time.
You had to work 2 full-time jobs, but these are the other things that you deal with, right? This year I was speaking to her this morning. I think I was 1:30 actually before I went to sleep. She asked me some questions. I said, I'm going to sleep. I'll wake up early morning. But yeah.
Now she's good in her field. She's good at what she does.
Okay, so you spoke before about the dynamics in the company, right? And why things work the way they work, right? Okay, so Jack, you will do things, to a certain degree, but then you stop, right? Or you won't quite finish off, right? And I'm a little bit like that as well. I'll take something to 90, 95%, and then I expect, okay,
Yeah,
I've done the bulk of it. Now, tidy up the loose edges, right? Yeah. Jacinta is the tidying up. She actually makes sure that everything is actually
crosses her T's.
She's the one who just selects the button to finalise.
No. But that is so important in a family dynamic to have that person who actually looks after those small things that we think, you know what, I'll get to it. Because if everyone thinks like, I'll get to it, no one ever gets to it. And that's when companies actually, or businesses start to get into real big trouble. Because you need someone like Jacinta. You need someone like you.
It's balance.
Bro's put him on blast.
It's a balance.
If you guys are watching, it didn't just freeze.
So Alex, with you, right?
I know what I'm about.
Yeah, but let me tell you. Let me tell you.
Snapping necks in cash and checks. I want the Catalina wine.
Okay.
Yeah,
so bolts and hools. Okay, so with you, Alex,
Time, place.
we want to try and bring you in, into the business. You want to do your golf. You want to play golf and everything. your mind wasn't really always on Cold Xpress, right? And then you said, you know what, I am going to come into and work Cold Xpress because I said to you, you're not staying home, and
he had no choice. He lost his license. He couldn't get anywhere else, so we said just ride your bike to work.
Anyway, so you started working Cold Xpress, but I could tell that your heart wasn't in it, right? You were just here. You were just here because you had to be here, type of thing. Now, and I've got to say, maybe the last 6 months.
6 weeks.
The last 6 months, I've seen a big change in you.
6 weeks.
Right? Where it's almost like your balls dropped a little bit and you're taking a bit more responsibility.
I think because his friends kicked him up the ass to say, hey, you got a good opportunity here. Fucking,
Well, two things. Yeah. Like, I've always been big enough to spoken to you guys. How do you do something that your heart's not in? How do you find enjoyment in it? Like, love what you do, all that. That's fine. Like, that looks good on the poster. But for me, I didn't enjoy coming to work. I didn't enjoy what I do because I brought no value. Now, Jack's going to look at the camera and be like, what value do you bring now? But for me, if I felt like if I didn't go to work, not a lot really happened, that wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't enjoying. And that's just like in anything. If you start to, that's not just in business, that's in everything. If you start to do something and you become somewhat a little bit good at it, you actually find
it's more enjoyable.
Yeah, it's more enjoyable. And you want a snowball effect. You want to progress in that. That's the same thing with me with what I've found in Cold Xpress. At the start, doing the truck driving, all that, the warehousing, for me, like, in a way, yes, it's very needed. But if I didn't rock up to work, that's fine. Someone else will do it. Now, in the position I'm in now, it's more like more responsibility, yes, one, but not saying people rely on what I do day to day, but what I do makes more of a difference. And that's what I'm finding more enjoyment now. That's why I enjoy coming to work. And that's why I'm taking on more challenges and more tasks. And that's why I'm here.
It's good.
Sorry, I bleaked out. What'd you say? No, just kidding.
See, when you've been with us for 15 odd years, right? But it took you quite a while before you started to mature. And it's only really been the last few years that I feel that you've really...
You say last few years every 5 years.
Yeah, because you keep progressing, which is a good thing.
But you were learning, Jack.
Everyone learns.
When you moved from the warehouse, came into the office.
You learn too. Everyone learns.
Yeah. You were you were eager to learn.
We're human beings. We continuously learn.
Yeah.
You never fully know everything.
For me, I'm happy.
Dad says mum gets pretty close.
For me, I'm happy that you all work, in the family business. I mean, I always said to Dad, if they don't want to, I'm fine with that. If they don't want to, I just want them to have a career that they're happy with. But now that you've all been working, only Rebecca has got her own career, but you're all valued. Why are you laughing?
Nothing.
Why are you laughing?
We better not to comment on the career.
Now, I will say
but
that,
you're all valued.
never...
When you just said when you came to work before, you did this and that, you forgot that there were certain things that you did that did help, and the girls used to tell me.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying...
So don't undervalue yourself because you're doing something you didn't like, but whatever you did, like when you drove, you taught drivers,
or when you
used to cut the grass at the front, when you worked in the office.
Best hedges in the southeast.
So I'm saying, even though you thought you weren't made, you did learn things and you were helpful.
I'm not saying the skills, I didn't learn any skills. Like I do actually think now, from where I am now, I do think it was very wise, very smart for me to do those smaller jobs. Yep. Because you learn the whole, and that's like you, Jack. You started in the warehouse as well. Mm-hmm. It's to understand the whole ins and out of the business, you can't just walk into management. Yeah, I have no regret learning the warehouse, going for doing the driving, working in the office. I have no regrets doing that. Like, it all plays a part, and I take little bits and pieces of skills that I've learned from everything. Yeah. But I was just saying that is one thing before though. You said you guys never really pushed us to work for the company. Probably Jack's probably the only one.
What do you mean? They tried to get me.
You broke your leg.
I made Dad give him the worst position.
I was in school, man.
Yeah,
I was 14. What's it got to do with here?
You broke your leg. You took time out of school. Then you had your appendix. You took more time out of school. You went back to school. You're like, Dad, I'm struggling. I I can't keep up.
Yeah,
That's fine. I'll take you
6
out.
months had already gone.
That's what I mean. That's how you started. That's how.
And I didn't want him to stay home. I didn't want him to stay home and on PlayStation and all that. I said, no.
Grinder.
You're not going to stay home.
I'll never give that up.
You're not going to stay home. You come to work, and at the end of the year, let's see what, if you want to go back to school, just remember your friends are going to probably move up and you're going to be,
But I wasn't struggling with school. I'm a visionary. I was thinking a lot about how valuable I could be at our family business from a young age.
Jack's schooling dropped when the pictures didn't have any pop-ups anymore.
Do you like a pop-up?
Yeah.
But
no.
just
And so what we did, we thought we'll make it really hard for him. We'll give him the shit. Well, when I say shit, we'll give him the harder jobs to do.
Night storming.
But just before we wrap up, question for all you guys. What is your favourite moment through your whole time at Cold Xpress? Start with your mum.
Favourite moment? I like when we did our family Christmas parties with all the workers and their families. I liked that.
We do it every year.
Yeah, I know. I like that.
Oh, that's your favourite time of the year?
Yeah.
Christmas.
I like that, yeah.
We used to go all out. We had that mechanical
I like that
bull.
because we are a family business, and I like that they brought their families. We had rides for the kids. It was a great family environment. It wasn't just.
Yeah. And the last couple of parties we've had, Christmas parties, I haven't liked them. You tried to go up.
Dad, you got blackout drunk last Christmas. What are you talking about?
Yeah, literally, we had to carry you out in a stretcher.
Yeah.
That
in the city, I didn't like it.
Dad, what's your favourite moment?
I don't.
What's
Every day, right? Seeing us kids work there. That's your favourite moment.
right.
Especially when he walks into his office. He looks through. He sees me in my office. He's like, "Fuck yeah, my son's here getting it done."
I get in and you never.
That's
there.
what I think. You think. You know what I mean? That's what I think. My favourite moment. I don't have a favourite moment. I don't have a favourite moment where we all always together. For me, I just like it. That's it. I don't know anything different. I love it. I love every day that we're working together.
I've got sad
when
moments.
we're not going at each other. That's it. When I say going at each other, but I don't know. I don't have an actual. My moments would be like when we do something, a new division, a new venture for Cold Xpress, when we get acquisition our site or this, or like we just purchased 2 brand new trucks. Like for me, that's exciting things because it's
full of brand new trucks.
Yeah, but it's exciting because you never did that. You always just try to get the most value for in a second-hand market. So for me, it's like, okay, this is a new thing literally in the history of the company that we're doing. So for me, those things are big. This premises here is big for me. Yeah. Alex?
We got that new vending machine. No, I honestly, the experiences the company takes, me included, like even look, I love golf, so it's pretty easy for me. I love all the golf days we go to.
Which we're going to run golf day this year, by the way. Anyone's wondering. Need sponsors, by the way.
Yeah, no, I generally just enjoy. I do now more so than any other time. I enjoy coming to work, knowing I get to have lunch with you guys. I know that's like very bare minimum stuff, but that's
you don't even work at the same fucking site as us.
I walk over and get lunch with you guys.
You're at this site.
I enjoy having lunch with you guys. It's.
I was going to say it sounds
I like
I
Fridays.
know it sounds like nothing.
He
But
cooks the sausages. They're really good.
So now you like the Friday.
he loves the barbecue
Yeah,
Friday.
but not through Lent.
Not through the
but
he gave up.
Shino was saying, because I said let's put we'll put barbecue on for our office in here, and then you didn't like that because you got to pay for the sausages.
What are you talking about?
That's what Jacinta was saying. She said Dad's upset that
It's cheaper than getting Uber Eats all the time.
So I'm saying, see, I'm thinking of the company. I think it's good. Friday barbecues, it's good.
Barbecue Friday.
Barbecue
Let's make it
Friday.
back. Let's bring it back.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's for my favourite times. Just hanging out with you guys.
That's
More so
good.
Mum. Mum doesn't yell at me as much. So
I don't yell at you.
no, that's what
I know
I said.
you don't do
I
your
said,
room.
You don't yell at me as much. So come over. Hey, Mum.
But
No,
we've had a couple.
Dude, seriously, why can't you do your room?
When's the last time you looked at my room?
Last week.
Exactly right. That's
Why can't
7
you do
whole
your room?
days. I've been making moves up there.
Have you cleaned your room?
Dave, no power tools.
Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you on the next one. Cheers.
Clean your room, dude.
I've cleaned my room. You haven't even checked my room. Have you checked my room?